I don't even know what number this is, Mother. 70. Could this be? This is
know.
79, I think.
Okay.
I believe that's possible.
Did a couple without me, so.
Right. Dad's was last week. Did very
Right.
well. Everyone liked seeing Dad's on Spotify. So Spotify numbers looking good. Yeah.
So podcast 79.
Yeah. How you holding down the fort up in New Jersey?
Good. As you can see behind me, the walls were all painted. The basement's cleaned up.
So mom literally kicked me out, took my office, which is cool.
And it echoes. No, it was always my office. You came into mine.
Wrong, Mother. Wrong. No, yeah, I still have the echo too. I'm actually using this microphone because I still can't get rid of the echo. I think I have to get like some giant carpets to absorb some of the acoustics. But yeah, I'll figure that out eventually. But yeah, other than that, what else is new in Jersey?
It means getting out of the apartment. It means going out into the world.
You mean I can't just Amazon everything, Mom? You think they will?
Send your 89-year-old grandmother.
Yeah, Graham, I need you to get the thickest carpet you can find that's 6x6. I was curious. Yeah, I was curious as to like how because we use something called the Luxar system, so it's kind of like a set of boxes, that predetermined boxes to get packages. But I was like, if someone has a really big package, I have no clue how they would fit in that Luxar. Right? And you
still figure that out?
No, I know how they would do it. They're supposed to bring it over, but what are the odds that they're going to bother doing that, you know?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, so
you're probably younger and stronger than the person who works in the mailroom there.
Yeah. Well, I told Dad I went to this gym with our cousin, and I think I said it to you too, but I was out lifting all the Army guys. I don't think they're Marines. Marines,
about it,
but I was like, oh, this is not good for our country. I was like, this isn't good.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So other than that, Mom, I'll be honest, the hardest thing so far has just been cooking, in the sense of, it's funny because now that I'm on my own, the ability to kind of multitask, in the sense of I have to remember to pull out whatever I'm cooking at night. Like that's the stuff where I'll be like, oh shit, I forgot. I forgot this morning. So those kind of things, and then balancing it. And it feels like that.
Defrost it in the microwave.
I could, but yeah. So I prefer the natural thaw, Ma. You know?
No, I know. It is easier that way, but I always forget too. Or I have no idea what we're going to have for dinner.
Yeah, I mean, it's been easier, but it's like been easier to remember. Like it just comes to me naturally now. But sometimes I'm like, crap, I forgot to do this and this. But what's funny is it makes the days go by a lot faster. Does that make sense? Because like now I have so much going on. I'm like, oh my God, the day's already over.
That's right. That's right.
That, and I did
say anything, but Kenny's here. So it's a pain in the ass to cook because he eats nothing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
We're not going to have peanut butter sandwiches every night.
I've been cutting a lot of calories. Like Mom, I've been just making basically like straight meat and rice. I just switch up the rice. Yeah. So I have tons of rice.
Vegetables too, right?
Yeah,
Fruits
broccoli.
And veggies.
I made a quesadilla before. That was a mistake. I burned the shit out of it. I was like, let me get fancy and cook the
quesadilla. That's not diet food. That's carbs.
Yeah, but it's like I've pretty much cut out everything else. Like I haven't had a sugar in weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. When I went to my aunt's house.
That's who's?
Yeah, because I got the dessert. So it's actually been since last Saturday. I haven't had any sweets. So it's pretty easy.
Your birthday's this week. I'm sure she's already planning your multi-cakes.
I forgot that it was my birthday this week until you just reminded me. Yeah.
Yes.
Big
worst winter in New Jersey's history.
I heard, which is wild. I've been waiting for snow for years, and then the year I leave, they're like, "Hey, here's a lot of stuff."
When you were born in '96, it was the worst.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought you meant this week because I know
horrible.
I know the winds and stuff were awful, but yeah.
It's been very cold in the Northeast, not just here.
Yeah.
And we had a dusting with ice underneath, which it was not pleasant that day, but we've had worse. Like I said, the winter of '96 was far worse.
Right.
Yeah.
What else is new, Mother? Anything else at home?
Oh, I mean, Ken's here, and like I said, it's a pain to cook because he's good. He won't eat anything though. You know, like he won't have dinner, so it's just Dad and me, and then I feel guilty, so we eat hot dogs tonight. That kind of thing. Ken doesn't eat hot dogs.
You don't eat
hot dogs. I'll have a sandwich later, Mom. Okay. Yeah. But no, it's been fine. It's quiet quiet without you chasing me around with memes all day.
Mom, yeah, I've been curating. So every time I'm home, like when I was home every day, when I got back from the gym, I'd show Mom all the memes I looked at night, like before falling asleep. Now Mom's memeless. She has nothing.
I have no memes.
I have no memes. But
And he gives me one or two every now and then. Nothing.
Nothing good. Yeah.
No.
And I'm going to see Kenny tonight. So Kenny's, we have a big UFC tonight. So I'm sure I'll see Kenny at some point.
Dad informed him that he has to bring news to the table at dinner.
Ooh.
So it's usually sports news. And after the first night, Dad looked at me and he goes, weak, very weak.
Yeah.
He had to step up his game a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into the news, Mother, because I think one of the biggest, I don't know if news scandals, I wouldn't call it a scandal, but the big one this week or past week, even though you and I haven't talked about news in about 3 weeks, which is weird to me.
Yeah.
Trump
I actually haven't been reading a lot of it anyhow.
Oh, really? Trump winning the Iowa caucus and Vivek ending his dropping out. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So I don't know where to start with this, but I think the caucus one is probably the best place to start because we kind of knew that Trump was going to win, but we didn't realize the freaking landslide that he had, which was 52%.
I suspected it.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was going to be that big of a gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why New Hampshire's tomorrow. New Hampshire's kind of the last one. If he wins this way by wide numbers, it's pretty much done. You know, we'll go through all the other primaries, but there's nowhere else somebody's going to make it up and, become a contender.
Right.
For the Republican primacy.
But why is it such a big deal, Ma? That's what I didn't really understand. Like we all knew Trump was going to win, but why Iowa? Like what's so significant about winning Iowa?
Bellwether cases. Each state is a bellwether test of what the country feels is the leading Republican candidate. So they've given a lot of credence to these caucuses and these primaries that if you win over certain ones, you're pretty much assured to be the Republican candidate. So every state will eventually cycle through and elect a Democrat and a Republican. The Democratic, they have them also. So it's just something that we've always done. And there is something to be said for timing. Everybody wants to be the first one, but, to have their first caucus or first primary. I never really got the gist of why it really, really matters. I'm ignorant of a lot of the stuff to do with these. It just always turns out to be, sometimes it's a race, right? You never know. Like in 2016, when Barack Obama was up against Hillary Clinton, she was leading, and all of a sudden she started falling out in the caucuses, and that's when, or in the primaries, in the Democratic ones, and all of a sudden the tide turned, and now you saw that there was a new candidate. So sometimes that happens, but pretty much everybody knew going into this that he was the primary contender. Right. I mean, he's been double digits ahead of everybody for quite a while in all the polling.
Well, we're going into the Vivek stuff. Like, do you think that this was his plan all along? The fact that he was going, do you think that he kind of planned this from the beginning? Just because I had like he was endorsing Trump a little too much on the way up for me to say that this wasn't going to happen. Like this wasn't really a surprise to me. But the question is, was he dropping out because it was all part of his master plan, or is it because he realizes he's not going to beat Trump?
Well, a year ago, you never even knew who Vivek was. Now he's an international name. Yeah, that's true. So oftentimes you do that as a young person. Remember, I think he's 30-something, 34, 35. I think he's very young. Yeah. It's an incredible way to create a platform for yourself for future office. And he's obviously has the financing, or he can sustain himself and become a career politician and be a contender down the road. So he's set himself up, made a name for himself. Many people do that knowing full well they're not going to win this time, but they get their name out, they get their platform out, they get, they cut their teeth on a campaign, they learn how to do it. Very importantly, you meet staff people and whatnot that you weed through and say, all right, they're the B team for a candidate, but the A team gets to see you and your staff put together a campaign, a platform, and an election, knowing full well you're not going to win it, but sometimes it's in the losing that you win. You know what I mean? Like how you lose. So, for instance, think about how far Vivek came. He was not in office. He's a private citizen, right? Yeah. Compared to, say, DeSantis, who was a golden boy, and his whole campaign just imploded. And I just read a recent article. It was a piece done by Gadursky, is the political writer, who was very pro DeSantis, and he's an influencer, political influencer. And they called him and several others in early on in DeSantis's campaign. And he just documents how it was a disaster from the start because they weren't reading the audience. They weren't reading the people. They didn't understand it's not just about Florida. So considering DeSantis was somebody who was meant to go far, he's crashed and burned, and now he's got to make it up down the road to get back into a certain stature to run again. Somebody like Vivek made a name for himself on the conservative side.
Yeah.
And now everybody knows him.
Can I pause it? Would you say that this hurt DeSantis more than helped him running?
Well, yes, I think it did, because I think he had. It's safe to say that if there was no Donald Trump on the Republican side, in my opinion, DeSantis was a very strong candidate. In any other year, up until, say, 2016, when politics and government was turned on its head, DeSantis was a golden boy. Military, strong governor, conservative values, doing all the right things, saying the right things. Personality-wise, there's a lot of them that develop a personality. He's got the family, he's got the whole 9 yards.
Really? See, I hear the real knock on DeSantis is that he doesn't have personality. A lot of people say that. Like, he's not exactly, like, his personality, even Vivek's an interesting one because he's very well-spoken and he's also very personality-based as well. Whereas the other candidate, I have yet to see anyone on the Democratic or Republican side who is that influential and that big of a personality besides Trump. Does that make sense? So, like, when I go online, go ahead.
There aren't too many people on the Democrat. There's nobody else really running on the Democratic side.
I just mean just people in general. I'm just talking personalities in general. Yeah, there's a couple outliers, I guess, but not like a Vivek. Like I haven't seen anyone but Vivek in like the last 6 months. I've seen fails that our current president has done, and a couple Fetterman ones, as I'm sure, but maybe that's just my algorithms. But what I mean is, like, besides Vivek, I didn't think that anyone else even had it. I actually don't know what his polling numbers were in comparison to DeSantis. I don't know where he was, how far behind he was. But
well, I think what you also have to remember too is the mainstream media wanted anybody but Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So, for a while there, DeSantis was the flavor of the week, and they were pushing him. Oh, he's great. And then,
but it never turned into anything, right? It never turned into anything. Same with Nikki Haley.
And he stepped on a lot of liberal feet with the whole Disney issue and the "Don't Say Gay" is how they labeled it, his legislation down there. So that, and the fact that, and then they were pushing Nikki Haley. She's now the flavor of the month. So someone like Vivek had nothing. I wouldn't say nothing to lose, but he's a polished individual. He's a good speaker. However, he's not totally vetted. And we were starting to see some stories the night before he dropped out about some questionable, I forget what it was, plagiarism or something, or his platform, or things he's flip-flopped. And some of the things he said, now again, because he is young, you can't use the excuse, well, I said it a long time ago. It's fairly recent because he's a young guy, where he had very different opinions about immigration. So there's always that question. That's true of every politician. But for someone like Vivek, he knew he wasn't going to go. You can't take Trump on in this environment. He knew his policies were similar to the ones that Donald Trump started and developed, and we can argue whether he followed through or not in his first term. But he was on the coattails of Trump.
What I thought was great about Vivek's campaign is he was really the only one that talked about bringing the right and the left together again, which I think, to his point, is what we need. Like, he was very good about kind of saying, listen, this is what I'm going to do, and this is why it should make everyone happy. Like, the idea that he was going to pardon Trump, which everyone on the left would be like, how dare you? But then when you hear his reasoning, you go, okay, I get your reasoning a little bit here. Like, I can understand why it would make sense to bring everyone together. And that I did appreciate about his campaign. But we live in a time now in a society where, unfortunately, I think people can't see that, and people will vote against that, unfortunately. So I think, to go back to my original question, I do think that this was a little bit part of his grand plan, rather than the idea that he just backed out because he was losing.
like I said, stepping back was not a loss for him.
Yeah.
He made a name for himself. He got his name out there. He will be and they even talked about him as vice president. He will be a contender down the road in some office, maybe in the
I think there's a
senatorial.
good chance he's VP.
Governor.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance Trump makes him his VP. It wouldn't make sense if he didn't, in my opinion. The only other person was Tucker, probably. And Tucker Carlson, I doubt even wants to really do it at this point. Like, that's a lot for him. I think he likes where he's at right now as a newscaster.
I think this is an unusual situation with this particular candidate in that he can't make the mistake again on whom he picks for a vice president. And there is something to be said to do the Democratic, do what the Democrats did and pick such a bad Republican vice president that even his own party doesn't want to get rid of him because they'd be stuck with that vice president, like we have now with Kamala Harris. So it makes it that much more difficult for them to install somebody else if they were to impeach Trump or attempt to impeach him again and remove him from office if the next person in line is such a buffoon. But as we've seen, there's been such derangement going on, and the first term was just such a mess that he needs to pick somebody. You know, I like Tucker Carlson, nothing against him. I like, to some extent, the things that Vivek says. They're just not seasoned politicians. And unfortunately, I think if Donald Trump is lucky enough, he needs some people that are incredibly sharp. And it may be no names, to be honest. It may be people nobody knows, people that aren't on the national stage.
Which isn't a bad thing. I think we are at the point where we have to start getting rid of these. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but getting rid of these older people that have been in there for 40 years. They're deep rooted. I want to see fresh blood on the right and the left. And I think the question is, when did these people give up the baton? And they're not going to do that until they're dead. That's the problem. Or they pass it on to their kids, like we're seeing with... I
also think especially somebody like Trump, sometimes he goes for the shiny object in the room. And this is not a situation anymore where he needs a shiny object. He needs a seasoned, not politician, a government person, somebody who knows the ins and outs, somebody who has his back, not because of who he is, but because it's the president with a platform and something that the majority of the American people want, and policies that, because they're going to attack him from day one, and this is going to be a very different. I hope for this president, our country's sake, this will be a very different 4 years from this particular president, and to some extent. Everybody always says, Chris, you'll see it as you go through life, I'm going to bring everybody together. I want to work together. I want to reach across the aisle. I want to do this. I want to do that. It all sounds great, and to some extent it's true. But I'm a 58-year-old woman, and I'm here to tell you, after what I've seen the last 5 or 6 years, I don't want to work across the aisles anymore. That's just how bad I think the left side has become, that you can't work with many of these people. It's just absurd what's been going on in this country. And to say, well, I'm going to negotiate on 10 million people that have invaded our country. It's like saying, let's negotiate an agreement about how we're going to fight a war. It doesn't work that way. Right. And many people in this country now view our country as being under attack. It's a silent attack, but it's an attack. And I don't think there's a lot of room for, let's reach across the aisle, let's do hugs and kisses. That's not what we've been seeing from the liberal side, the Democratic side, for the last 6 years. It's what's the term? Burn it down. We're going to do whatever we want. We're going to destroy the First Amendment. We're going to do whatever it takes. We're going to buy the media. We're going to do everything. When you're living in that kind of environment, it's like the Civil War. It's hard to reach across the aisle when Confederate soldiers are killing Union cousins, literally family members, in a field.
Right.
So that may sound extreme, but I do think that is how divided this country is, and it's very hard to say we're going to reach across the aisle.
But do you think that you're kind of talking about the politicians rather than the people? Like, to your point, I think, yeah. I agree with you. I think the politicians, you're not going to have any change until the politicians that are the powers that be right now are gone. That's the only option at this point. But I think with Vivek being so young, which is under 40, which is not that young, but I think in the grand scheme of where he is age-wise, he will be the start of what kind of turns the tide of everyone coming together in politics.
Well, he's got time. And like I said, a lot's going to be decided in the next 4 years. A lot of things are being decided on things in our country that have nothing to do necessarily to do with the presidency in the next election. There's some Supreme Court cases that are going to start to decide things regarding, as everybody talks about the deep state and all these agencies that have taken over control and legislation that's outside of our Constitution. And finally, when the Supreme Court is going to rule against that, that is huge. It's called the Chevron case. Yep. That is a huge decision. I want to say it's almost bigger than Roe v. Wade, because if they turn that around, you've gutted what they call the fourth estate of our the media being the fifth, I think it is, of our government that has become so what's the term? Adulterate, just mixed up. That was never supposed to be that way. EPA, the Department of Education, all these places, they were never supposed to have this much power. And it's supposed to be in the hands of the people who elect people to do it. So back to your original comment, the divide in our country, it's not the people of our country, and politicians keep telling me that. Our president currently keeps saying, everybody's so divided, everybody's so divided. No, it's the people versus the government. So if you're going to talk about crossing the aisle, which I find so amusing, it's me with my Democratic friend next to me saying, no, this is not how our government's supposed to work. You work for us. We don't work for you. And it's become so butchered that that's why I say I can't reach out with these politicians. I'm perfectly fine clearing house right now of both parties and starting fresh. Oh, yeah. That's how bad it has become.
But the problem is that's not realistic.
No, it's not.
I think most people in this country would agree the loud minority is what we deal with, whereas the quiet majority would probably agree with you, is what I'm trying to say. I had to do that in my head. You watch the gears work there.
Yeah. When you look at polling and certain issues coming on right now, I'm even surprised how many Democrats have turned.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the moderate Democrats, obviously they're not, left of left.
Yeah.
Same thing with the right of right, who, want to take on the world and start wars. The left is not much better. So don't kid yourself when they say, the right, they just want to go to war. You got your extreme left that's the same way. Having said that, most of the people are in the middle of the country. You're middle of the line, moderate, Democrat, and Republican. And most of us all collectively see a problem. So to me, it's not even a Republican-Democrat issue. It's the people versus the government that we have. And it's just gone so off the rails in terms of our Constitution and how it's supposed to be working just because of one person's name.
Yeah. What's interesting is most of my friends who are very left-leaning, they'll say, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of, they give me all the reasons as why they don't like Trump, but they understand that he's probably the best option right now for where we are. So I respect the idea that they'll tough it out for another 4 years just because of how things are going. But then the other side of my brain goes, we're kind of at the point now where we're picking for what's the better, I don't want to say better evil, that's not the right word, but our options here are a little limited, right? In the sense of you're having these landslides. You really don't have any other politicians, especially now that Vivek dropped out. You really don't have anyone to go up against these two. Now it goes up to the voting systems to hope to God that whatever happens goes well in the next election. So it's tough. I think people... Again, I don't want to get into election fraud and election stealing, whatever, but even my Democratic friends would be very, very surprised if Donald didn't win this time, to the point where even they'd be like, okay, now we have to start checking some of these voting machines.
When I talk about the election, and I've always said this, I give Donald Trump a lot of credit for taking on what he took on, for reaching, if we all remember, his number one topic in his first election that got him the win against the establishment candidate like Hillary Clinton was immigration. He led with that. So that was an issue in 2014, 2015, right? Before the 2016 election. That's how many years ago this has been going on. And it has exploded since then. So that's what got the man elected in our country the first time, Democrats and Republicans. What everyone tends to forget is Democrats don't want illegal immigration either. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest issue. And that's what most people uniting around a particular candidate. Now, Reason why I say that is it was never about Donald Trump. I give him credit for what he did, what he has done as an individual. I'm not thrilled with everything he did while he was in office, but having said that, he represents a certain group of people, meaning not just your MAGA. They always mock the MAGA people like they're some sort of diseased people. He represents the policies of the conservative movement from going back way back when. And since he's come to town, he's really highlighted for Democrats and Republicans, or conservatives and liberals, just how far off the rails our uniparty government has gone, where there is no distinction anymore between what's a Democratic platform and what's a Republican platform. Don't kid yourself, there was not a lot of reaching across the aisles when the Democrats were in power in the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. They pushed through stuff. They didn't think twice about impeaching a president. They made up crap all the time. They wasted tax dollars running all sorts of special counsels and investigations that went absolutely nowhere. Now you say, well, this time now you got to reach across the aisle. That's not really fair to the next group that comes into power that wants to right a wrong ship. Right. Point being, Trump represents a lot of policies. Vivek came in and he mimicked a lot of those things that are the platform of the Conservative Party. That's why he has done well. Now, you have to remember, though, Chris, he was going in a Republican primary. He's never been in a nationwide, election. So what he was saying, and oftentimes you'd see this, a lot of the stuff he was touting now, if he was the presidential Republican candidate, all of a sudden they start softening their tune a little bit, right? Now they become less conservative because they have to appeal to a wider group, because now they have to go to a general election and they have to appeal to everybody around the country. So that's always the test. They're always going to be, even Democrats, they're going to be true to their platform when they're in their primary. Once they get elected, all of a sudden they have to become more moderate.
Right. Yeah, that's just how it works. That's just politics, right?
Right. We don't know yet with Vivek. Maybe he won't be that way. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
we
he'll
hope.
be more like a Donald Trump.
We really hope. I mean, he's very well spoken, and I think he's very well educated on the topics, considering he's not a veteran politician. Right. So I give him props for that. But speaking of immigration, Mom, let's get right into it. So we're going to share our screen. Let's see how well this works. Boom. I know I'm down at the bottom now, but U.S. travelers outraged by airport signs appearing to allow migrants onto flights without ID. I'm quite offended. You sent me this one.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought of when I saw this and read through this, Mother, isn't this exactly how 9/11 happened? In the sense of just allowing people onto planes?
Oh, it wasn't even that easy.
It was hard. Yeah. So go ahead. You can give the details on the article, but.
Well, I can't see the article. I don't know. It doesn't pop up for me. But anyhow, it's fine.
Oh, really?
So a friend of mine, she just recently went to get her real ID, her New Jersey real ID, which is a special license so you can fly. Mm-hmm. So they make you get something, and it says right on it, real ID. Okay. She had to spend a half an hour getting that and prove who she was. And one of her addresses was slightly wrong. It said road instead of avenue or something. So that was a whole big thing. She couldn't get it.
Who messed that up?
Next day, this article comes
They didn't know their address? Hold on. Who is this?
No. What happened was when they first bought their home, their address was it was like Fox Road. But the township didn't recognize it as that. They called it Fox River Road.
Okay, gotcha.
Because of that slight distinction, they were giving her a hard time. It took more time to get it. I only bring that up because next day I'm reading this article. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? As a citizen, she had to go out. We have to go out and do all this just to get on an airplane. And this is now what we're allowing. Individuals who, the CBP, they have some sort of one vet or one something it's called, where it's an optional if you want your picture taken. It's optional information. And as we know, because investigative reporters have been on the scene, there are passports and Visa cards or ID cards littered all over the border of Mexico and the U.S. because they purposely dropped their ID so they can start fresh with a new ID in our country.
Yeah, we've talked about that. It is getting a little too easy, huh? But I just think of what we have to do. So for those of you that can't see it, I think you should, since, we'll see. But it says, Non-U.S. citizens document validation. Let me tell you, Mom, right now the microphone is like right in front of my face. Like, this is why I hate it here. Like, in the sense of I can't use the other microphone, so I'm like, I gotta move this to read. No, mine. So it says notify the TSA officer that you are a migrant. Okay. TSA. So instantly you go, okay, so a migrant, maybe that means a legal immigrant. Then you keep going down. It says TSA officer will take a photo. Optional, which is like probably not supposed to be optional. And then if requested, provide your alien identification number or biographic information.
Yeah.
So
an American citizen cannot get on a plane without a picture ID.
I know, but for some reason they're like, if requested, you might not even get asked to show your ID and then follow officer instruction. So to your point, it's like, we're getting to the point where there's nothing stopping you from just flying over anymore, except for paying for the ticket, I guess. But even then, I don't think they're paying for that ticket. That is insane. That really is insane.
Yes. I mean, think about it. Since you were a little kid, you're taking your shoes off at the airport. You're taking your belt off. We've got like cattle calls now just to get to a freaking Orlando Disney trip.
Oh, yeah.
During spring break. And now I have people who, maybe they're wonderful people. I don't know. They broke the law coming in our country. So right there, they got to strike against them. Having said that, I don't know who they are.
Come on in. Yeah, right?
So let's put you on a plane with how many other people, close the doors and send you up into the air. Fingers crossed, none of you are psychos.
Yeah. Yeah, no checks, no nothing. That is crazy to me. But like, it kind of goes back to what I initially said. I mean, think of that's almost exactly how 9/11 happened, right? Random guys get on a plane because there was very little testing, and then look what happened.
Those people had to actually go through an effort of learning how to fly planes out in Florida and get some sort of minimal training, which I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but that took them a year to plot and plan that awful tragedy. Now you have individuals, and again, I don't know if they're going to use airplanes, but now it is a weapon of choice for them. There's nothing stopping somebody who has seen this now, who may have bad intentions when they came over the border, who may be one individual who's waiting for instructions to start an attack on our country, just like 9/11. And now we won't even know who they are because they don't have to show ID when they get on the plane.
Right. Yeah.
These are ghosts.
Yeah. Huh.
Which is bad enough. But what's more outrageous is, and more people, if you looked at the comments at the end of this article, and I would urge people to do that, you're getting less and less as a citizen. We're giving more and more to non-citizens. And now we even have to pay for it. So we're paying for their flight, we're paying for their lawyer, we're paying for their food, we're paying for their housing. And the benefit to that is you have to show ID. You can't get on a plane.
Not even not to mention all the stuff that we have to pay for. Think of how many New York City. Think of how many people can't go to their kids can't even go to school because they're putting migrants in. That's insane. Yeah. I don't understand how, even if you're on the far left, how do you not see that that's a bad idea, right?
They do, and many individuals who are traditional Democratic voters are screaming. But you know what? Let's see if they do change their vote, because that's how these same people get elected every time. In my opinion, they've taken it too far. This is extreme, and this can't stand. It's one thing to do things that make people uncomfortable, but when you are taking the rights away from American citizens and at the same time putting them at risk, and telling citizens, shut up, put up with it, there's nothing you could do about it. Oh no, there is a lot we could do about it. You just don't want that kind of response. And that's my point, Chris. These are the same people who are supporting these crazy policies that everyone says, well, let's work together.
What's wild to me is, well, I don't know if wild is the right answer, but like, it kind of goes to show that a lot of these politicians are so checked out as to the reality of the world. Like the New York City guy, the mayor, it was a mayor or governor, but it's got to be governor. But even he's like, oh, this was a horrible idea, and I didn't realize that this would go so poorly. Right now, he's like, please, someone else. Yeah, he's like, please, someone come take some of these immigrants because this was a terrible idea. So it's funny. It's one of those things where it's like, until it's actually happened, Like, it's almost I don't want to say, I don't want to put all people on the left in a category, but a lot of times I feel like people on the left, especially the politicians, they'll do these things that sound good on paper, and then once they come into fruition, it ends up being a horrible idea. And
Do you understand? They love saying sanctuary city. It was very easy because they weren't on a border.
And now look
But
at all of
when
our sanctuary cities, right? Think of every
so when
Democratic
Governor Abbott
city.
and Governor DeSantis started shipping these people up to them and said to them, okay, now you see what it's like. It's very easy to say, I want to be a sanctuary city. Colorado now, am I right? Is it Colorado? I believe it's Colorado. The hospital's bankrupt because they've had to treat so many immigrants, illegals, that have no insurance.
Right.
You know who bails them out? You and me.
Yeah.
Our federal tax
dollars. Yeah. All right.
So again, Denver, Colorado. Oh yeah, we love the immigrants. Bring them in. How dare you keep them out? Sounds great when you're all the way up in central and northern New York, America, and you're not on a border.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I don't know. I don't think I can add much more to that because I feel like at that point, I'm just going to keep being repetitive, Like, it's something that someone just has to freaking use their brain a little bit and kind of go, hey, maybe it's not a great idea that my kids can't go to school because there's migrants in the gym sleeping, right? Yeah. All right.
It's a painful lesson to learn if you're a parent who says, oh, sure, I think immigrants should come in. And you mean well. Yeah, bring them in the country. My parents were immigrants. They became citizens. It's all great. But I'm guessing your parents didn't force American kids out of classrooms or their children out of classrooms so that they could come in and family could come in. It's a whole different ball game. And that's what I'm saying. It's so unnecessary that they're pushing it. And now when you're taking it to travel after what we've experienced not that many years ago on 9/11, and now people are seeing, wait a minute, we're all scratching our head here. It started with simple things like, I have to show all this ID to get on a plane and they're just walking across a border. I have to get vaxxed to keep my job and they're just coming across the border and they don't have to get vaxxed. Now we're at the point where they don't have to show ID, but you do, getting on the exact same plane.
Yeah. All right, let's do a quick 180, Mom. Speaking of courts and immigration and whatever, at least the courts. So this is a big one. This is kind of gaming related, but it's more so developer related. The U.S. Supreme Court snubs Apple Epic Games legal battle. So let me take you back a couple years, Mother. This started in 2020. So
I remember.
Yeah. So for our viewers that don't remember it, this was back kind of the big Fortnite days, but this was kind of a big eye opener for people actually anyone who was thinking of developing an app at Apple. So basically what it is, it's like every time you put an app on the store, especially the iOS store, Apple gets 30% of that app. So like, let's say a app is $10. Apple automatically gets $3 of the dollars when they buy it.
Right.
Then on top of that, back when Fortnite mobile app was still super, super popular, which I think it still is, but I'm not sure. Any in-game currency, like anything you buy in-game, Apple also got 30% of that. So Epic Games was like, hey, this is clearly a monopolization of power here. Why is anyone going to put it on the store? And it went on for years, and the courts basically said, yeah, well, we can't do anything about it. It's not, there was enough legal protection for Apple that they didn't have, there really was no case. So it goes down, this whole article basically talks about how they decided to bring it back up. It's called the hold on, let me see if I can remember. I believe it's the I got this.
Antitrust?
Is it an antitrust? I have to look at it again. I thought it was antitrust, but it's not. So basically the whole thing is just saying how even though there's a monopoly, it's about time that someone makes a new, not app store, but they need some kind of competition. And I think that kind of opens up, that was kind of the correct way that they should have taken it years ago, which was like, hey, this is clearly a monopoly. Why has no one tried making a separate store? So Apple actually has something called, I think it's Flight Test, which is basically where all the third-party apps go to test their new apps, but eventually they go to the store. So it's actually a very good point on Epic Games' standpoint, which is, hey, someone's got to come up with something new so that we stop getting these monopolies. Apple makes a killing on that
something
stuff.
though. Isn't it just it's a monopoly for an Apple iPhone, but doesn't Android have its own app store?
Yes, but they don't charge astronomical numbers. I don't know what Android's store is, but there's more stores on Android. Like you can go to different apps, so there's no
So typically,
monopoly.
it's only a monopoly because if I have an iPhone, I have to use the Apple app
Yeah, it's a
to
complete
download.
iPhone monopoly.
Right. But I have a choice of what phone. So basically, people are complaining because they want options on their iPhone.
Well, it's not so
They
much
want
the
other
people.
app options.
It's not so much the people like us customers. It's the developers who develop these apps that cost
Right.
millions of dollars to make. You put it on the store for $10, and Apple's like, we're taking $3 worth, which is 30%, which is a pretty astronomical number in comparison to what other companies do.
I don't know because I can load Fortnite on, say, Android. I can offer it that way, and they make money that way. Isn't an Android app store? Isn't that also considered antitrust then?
Yeah,
Because you
but
can only use theirs.
yeah, but on Android, Mom, if I go to the store, there's other stores I can download. So it's not one store on Android. Whereas on
Right. So
iPhone, there's
Apple
only
only
one.
offers one, the App Store,
Yeah,
right?
and it's all owned by them. Whereas Android stores can come from anywhere. Like you can have the Epic Games software straight on your phone. So it's definitely considered a monopoly on iPhone.
It's a monopoly on iPhone, but it's an Apple iPhone. So if I don't like it, I should go get myself an Android, and then I got other options. So it's
Yeah.
technically not a monopoly because I do have other options. It just means I have to get a different phone.
Well, you're looking at it from the consumer. Think about it as a developer, right? You want to get your app out there. You just designed an app. Why would I go to iPhone? Why would I even bother putting my app there?
The only reason why is because most people or a lot of people have an iPhone.
Yeah.
But it's not a total monopoly because I can go to Android. I can place my game on that. And you said there are multiple stores there. But I guess, I mean, obviously, to me, it's not as clear cut. It should be litigated because you're going to force Apple to change their pay structure or set up more stores, if you will, in order to download these games at different prices.
Yeah. So I agree with Epic. I do think, like, in my opinion, I think it is a little bit, not so much of I don't think monopoly is the right word, even though that's what they say in the article. I think it's more so just like a price inflation on something that, man, it's tough. Like it is kind of like if one app store is doing it for 5%, like, hey, we only want 5%, and a bunch of stores are doing 5%, and then Apple goes, hey, we want 30. It's like, man, you're really like, to me, that's, I forget. Okay. Right. Price gouging. Thank you. I guess it would be.
It's a form of price gouging where it's, like charging people extra for air conditioners when we just had a heat wave down south. So technically you can't gouge people during a crisis.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's not really a crisis. There's, to some extent, I would say Apple has a right to charge whatever they want to charge. It doesn't mean the developers have to post their product on there. Right. And I guess there are probably some rules and regulations as to how much you can charge, but it's not a true monopoly. It's not like Apple is the only game in town for these.
Yeah, only store in town for, yeah. I agree. Right. This is one of those fine line ones, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just thought that was an interesting article because on top of that, China just banned a lot of transactions in video games. Like they can't, I forget, just one of the guys in Discord, Jesse, he was going through it last night. Like they banned, like there's no more microtransactions. There's no more, a lot of these games will give you something just for logging in every day. So they banned that, which it's not a bad thing, but then you kind of have like I don't want to say a monopoly. Well, I guess it's more like a government decision, but I kind of like the idea.
Communism.
Yeah, I didn't want to say the word on YouTube because I don't know how that works, but yeah, it's I like it, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing. So,
well, I mean, here in our country, should be allowed to.
Yeah.
I don't believe in as many. I think we're overregulated for a lot of things. Doesn't mean that everything is good, but I'm a firm believer in it's the parent, the individual's right to decide what is good and not good for them. I don't need the government telling me.
I mean, you don't need little Timmy spending 80 grand on mom's credit card for Fortnite skins. I kind of agree. That's where I go.
But on the flip side, that's the parents' fault, right?
Yeah,
Agreed. We've had that discussion, and I don't think it's the government's responsibility. If you're going to have the government now regulate that stuff, and then parents complain that they lose parental rights, you can't have it both ways. Right. So in my world, if little Jimmy steals all that much money, how did he get access to your card? And how, there's a million ways to say how. I don't need the government coming in and saying, I'll fix that problem for you. Right. Like what China did.
All right. Now, speaking of video games and ruining the minds of children, the silent epidemic eating away at American minds. So I read through this whole article, and before I even started reading it, I knew exactly what this was going to be about, because it's kind of a reoccurring topic on this podcast. So basically, right, it's about kind of like how video games and too much screen time is eating away at children's brains.
It's not just children, because now we're getting enough data to track it as people who are, the iPad generation, they call it the iPad kids. Children like it's roughly Michael's age, your brother's age.
21,
So as you go through and you see the effects as they age up through it. What I found interesting about this article is, intuitively a parent knows, even when we were younger, our parents would say, shut off the TV and go outside. Because we had TV. We would watch TV constantly. It wasn't a new thing like it was for your grandparents growing up. A novelty that you had in your living room. We had TV. You had to shut it off, go outside, blah, blah, blah. What's interesting is to see when I read the article about how, you said that first part about the 10-year-old boy, the immediate effect it had on that, relatively immediate, by that kid having a fast from all electronics for, 2-3 weeks, whatever. The difference in the kid's behavior, the difference in his sports abilities that it had on him. Now, that's just one example, and you don't base everything on one. But when you look at the time that people are spending, and they go through the details about how it overstimulates the brain, it causes a perpetual stress. It leads to meltdowns, depression, anxiety. They're not saying that all video games are bad. What they're saying is they're designed to be addictive, like those micro, what do you call them? The micro
transactions that we were talking about? The microtransactions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Things that we take for granted that, when I hear about that, I'm like, oh, well, that's, interesting part to the game. Those are triggers, dopamine triggers and whatnot for people who are constantly. Me watching it? No, it's not going to affect me.
Alan Kinsey, are you listening?
Yeah. Well, just people in general.
Yeah.
You hear that as a parent, you say, all right, well, yeah, that's an interesting aspect that you get. Right. You get something, the longer you play, you don't know what it is. Well, guess what? That's a come on. That's to get somebody to keep going. Right. That's like what they do with gamblers when you keep putting the money in the slot machine. So all those things feed into an actual response, a dopamine response, and it becomes addictive. We know it. Parents know it. Adults even know it because we've talked about it on the podcast. They know they can't put their cell phone down. They know they can't get off TikTok. They're watching it all day. They know that they're quote unquote addicted. Problem is you're seeing it in a generation, and it's literally affecting, as this one person said, it was one thing, say for you, Christopher, your age, your group. It was there, but you had other things and you learned certain skills before it became a full-time thing. You have a whole generation, and they're called the iPad kids.
When we just talked about last night. We were making fun of Cal because we think Cal's an iPad kid, 100%. He's watching his dad's house right now, so he's like carrying his iPad around, and we call him the iPad kid.
Yeah. Well, they're raised on the iPad, right? From when they were little. And I almost put your brother in that category. Not that he was raised with it, but it's that generation that has electronics in every aspect of their life since they were virtually born, right? Been around, and in one form or another. And it's only gotten worse with each kid's, successive years. And now they're seeing the effects because when people are saying outside of work and school, they're spending 7 to 8 hours in front of some sort of device.
Right.
Okay. And technically you're supposed to sleep 8 hours. Maybe people get 6 hours a night, right? They're seeing a whole generation of people who aren't even learning basic life skills.
I'll double down on this one, Mother. You know what I think's even worse? Not only have we shortened the attention span of kids and just people in America in general, the quality of the content that they are viewing has gone down. So like I kind of wanted to talk about this, but I didn't know how to tie it into this. So within the last probably like month or two, Mom, I would say ever since the new year, but a lot of the old YouTubers have quit. Like the ones that have been around for 10 plus years, like Matt Pat, which is a big one with Game Theory. We had one of the Vanos guys leave. Like it's stuff like that where they're not leaving because they hate what they do and they're getting old and they're tired of it and they're burned out. It's because to keep up with the trends, it's, hey, like, I don't know how much news you see on these TikTok kids, but most of them are freaking morons, Mom. Like most of them bringing a gun to the mall prank. Like this is what how do you compete with that? The fact that that's what the algorithms now throw at these kids, it's like, we're all wasting our time here. So it kind of comes down to also what's actually being fed. And then by feeding them absolute dog shit, all the other big YouTubers that have put big productions and stuff into their content, now it's, hey, I got to take this production, bring it to a 1-minute video, and I have to be either stabbing someone or doing a prank in order for it to even make up the cost of the whole production team. So
right, and they're also saying there's a physiological response to it. There is an addictive quality, that dopamine release, and when they don't get that, right, it leads to depression. It leads to anxiety, irritability, ADHD, even a form of autism, and not just in kids, but there's something now to be said that they've tracked it. They've looked at these individuals, and keep in mind, when there was a pandemic, screen time went up exponentially.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Remember don't forget all the girls that bought the Nintendo Switches with Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
That was like the best. If COVID was their best year. No, a lot of girls
adults doing it.
Yeah.
And not realizing you're thinking, okay, I'm just doing this for entertainment. Okay, I get it. My generation, most people, but I'm not even sure all. Most people, okay, this is boring, they put it down, they move on to something else. Younger people are literally getting hooked on it, where if they don't have it, they're having a physical response.
Yeah.
Right.
Withdrawal,
and that's
really withdrawal symptoms.
Withdrawal symptoms, and just the mere fact that, like I'm saying, people are doing a fast with their kids and they're seeing almost immediate improvement, right? It's not realistic to do a full fast from all electronics because someday they got to go back. But it's like anything. It's almost like the equivalent to food. It's there, you have to have it, but you can easily get addicted. And then it's very hard because you can't just go cold turkey. The world doesn't allow you to do that.
See, I'm wondering if I'm wondering when VR really starts taking off, because this is the year that I think VR is going to be very prominent. I wonder how far that will change things, because then first off, you're now in a virtual world, which is not necessarily good, but it's something that you will be doing for a long time. So that might actually improve the attention spans. Does that make sense? So I think VR is going to change a lot of stuff.
I don't think the human brain is not wired to be in a virtual world. It needs to be in reality for a period of time. There's a difference between your existence and your entertainment. Entertainment should just be a portion of your life. It shouldn't fill up your whole life. And we're taking, if they could, they'd put kids in a virtual reality classroom all day. And then they come home to a virtual reality family and have a virtual reality sleep.
I should have said AR rather than VR, because now the waves that they're making an augmented reality, so your real reality, but just with other stuff involved, has gotten to the point where I think it's more beneficial than just a waste of time. So I don't know if you saw the new Apple one or the new Meta Quest 3. They're impressive. They're very impressive.
Yeah, Chris, why? Why do I need something augmented? Why do I need something virtual when I have a real world? And whenever you see those things taken to fruition in science fiction, it's always a dystopian society. It's always a sad.
Well, AR is different. You're thinking VR. AR is the real world, but you have overlays. So like instead of carrying your phone on you at all times, it's like hey, less phone time, but now I could just see it on my screen and then throw it away because now it's annoying my vision, right?
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
like something where you put all your electronics together kind of
Sort
thing, or
of.
platform everything?
Quest 3 AR. Let's see. So this is the mixed reality. This is gonna be gameplay, but like, see, that's your real like living room.
Today I am jumping into my first.
Oh, with all the stuff all over.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that it's necessarily bad if you're using it properly. Obviously, yeah. So I think like this is actually going to be like, I think right now we're in a downward wave of attention span and what kids are doing and blah, blah, blah. But I think eventually because of stuff like this, it's going to start ramping up because now you're taking the waste of time stuff and reality and throwing them together. And then you're going to have the people that are either going to sink or float as always, which are going to be the ones that take advantage of it and make life better, or the ones that'll just sit at home and do nothing. Right. That's just an inevitability with everything that you do.
Yeah, we have to see, because remember, everyone says, oh, it's going to be so good when you have, all this stuff in the classroom. Kids will be able to learn so much. Well, that turned out to be a lot of crap.
Yeah.
What you do with it, right? And the more I guess the easier, it comes down to a certain mental discipline, emotional discipline, to know sometimes you just got to shut the shit off. I don't care if it's TV. I don't care if it's radio. I don't care what it is. The brain needs to be stimulated by other things, not the same old virtual, digital, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes we need to be organic. That's just all. We're human beings and we are organic. We're made of carbon. We need to be organic. We need to be, and we also need to be in silent space, which nobody does that anymore. Yeah. Nobody sits silently or works silently or does something without some sort of stimulation.
Problem is, if I hear one more celebrity talk about freaking meditation every day, I'm going to get pissed off. I do 15 minutes of meditation every morning. I'm like, what?
Realistic for a lot of people, because a lot of people have, they have lives. They don't have time to just sit for 15 minutes. They're very busy. But sometimes it's okay to sit at a kitchen table and have a meal without the TV on, without phones at the table, without, blah, 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 and eat a meal. I know that sounds bizarre to you because we've done that, but many families, they can't do that. They don't do
it, yeah.
And what's worse is when their kids are forced to do it, they're brats. They can't do it. And now they're starting to realize why. It is a physical thing. Brats for a lot of reasons, but maybe it's because it's related to they're having an emotional or a mental response to not being constantly stimulated by something else. It makes them irritable, depressed, cranky, etc.
Yeah. All right. So I had one more, but it's not really worth talking about. So I'll stop streaming that one. We actually have one. I asked everyone in Discord to post some questions, Mother, for us, because we're bringing the questions back. Oh, I just opened Spotify. Okay. Wrong thing.
I had a good question. It's actually from your brother. We were talking about it at dinner.
Liar.
No. He mentioned that, if you don't mind my jumping in before I forget.
No, go for it. Oh, I have to reopen Discord.
He mentioned that they're coming out, I think it's EA, is coming out with a game for NCAA. They're bringing it back, or they're trying to make sort of a Madden-type game for NCAA. And he was wondering, since there's been such a long gap between, I think it was 2014 when they last did it, and they're starting to do it now, so roughly 10 years. You always had that one face for Madden that represents the sport. Who would that face be for NCAA? No, you don't play sport. I thought that was a good question. Who would you use to encompass it?
I think you would have to do whoever the year before Heisman winner is.
Okay, that's a thought.
I think you'd have to, or whoever's the number one draft pick for that year. Those are the only ones that I could think of. That is a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, in the pro leagues, you do always have multiple standout athletes. It's hard to pick one. There's just that GOAT, Tom Brady. There's when he was playing. But even now, people watching the playoffs, there's always the Kelsey. There's always a face that seems to stand out from a publicity point of view, not just as a great player.
Yeah, I
think that's tough.
Yeah, and also think about you're gonna have to deal with the headache of how much do you pay that person? Why are they getting paid? Because they have to, right? You have to deal with that at that level. They don't really have a choice. Someone gets paid. So, I don't know.
school on there, and does the school get a piece?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, there's too many moving parts. So I think what they'd end up doing is just making like a generic like NCAA mascot for the games. I think that's really all you can do. I know that they've done some NCAA games that Michael plays, but I don't know who's on the cover of those. I don't know if anyone's at the cover. I'm really not sure. So
yeah, I haven't. Well, first of all, I said to Kenny, who has covers anymore? Isn't everything streamed? Like,
yeah, but you always have a cover to promote the game. So yeah. I don't know who it is for. It's been a long time since I played sports games, but I know FIFA. I think it might be Rapinoe, which is disgusting, but whatever.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So you ready for this question? I thought this was a really good question. So I think Zia sent me this one. Let me see. Zia. Oh, maybe it's Zia. I don't know. Whoever Z is. But what would be your last meal, and who would you share it with? So I'm going to add to this rule. What's your last meal? Who are you going to share it with? But it can't be a family member.
My last meal? You're really asking.
Yeah. What's our last meal? What would your last meal be, and who would you share it with? But it can't be a family member.
No, yeah, I don't want to share my meal with any of you people. I've eaten enough for all of you.
Fair point.
Well, I ultimately you don't want to hear the answer. This is the go-to, but obviously I'd want to share it with Jesus because.
Well, I think it has to be. I think it has to be a living person.
It has to be a living person. Okay, so
like what? It's got to be someone we know.
Deity is not.
Yeah, assuming. How about this? Do one deity. Or someone, like anyone, and then do one that's currently alive, just because.
Oh, it has to be somebody living?
Yeah, like one of our friends. Yeah.
Well, you can't hit me with that right away. I mean, that's tough one.
Well, we think about it. We got to think about it.
Somebody
The beauty of editing, Mom, is I could cut out 30 minutes of us just thinking.
Yeah, that's true. Cut now going on when you edit.
I think I'm with you. I think I'd have to choose like Jesus. I think I'd have to. For the last meal. But then again, if it's my last meal, I'm seeing him anyway. So I'll see him in 5 minutes afterwards.
That's my first, if not him, Mary. I mean, incredible people that changed history.
Right.
I don't know. There's always people that years ago I would have had a name for you, but now as I get older, what's interesting is, there are a lot of impressive people, but nobody is, if anything's happened, as you get older, you get jaded and you start looking at people as.
You're like, when I look at your past, you're really not that great of a person.
Right. A lot of these people that I used to think were, these great heroes, now I look and they're just, some of them are creeps now.
Yeah.
Or people that I would find interesting. Like Abraham Lincoln would be incredible.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Abraham Lincoln.
But he's not alive.
I would throw like a Nikolai Tesla in there or something, That one, I mean, but then again, he's probably so smart. It's not even a conversation, like he's probably like, you're stupid. You can't
even keep up with them. You want somebody who's down to earth, but a very intelligent person.
Yeah.
For one, I thought, even though I don't agree with everything, I thought Queen Elizabeth would be a great person to talk to.
Oh, that is a good one. Or Princess Diana.
She's a bit stupid. I mean, she didn't live that long, and she really didn't,
She was a trendsetter.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was, but she was an open book. There wasn't there wasn't much to learn about her.
That's true.
She didn't hide much. She gave interviews left and right.
Fair.
I don't know what we're going to talk about. And similarly, like an Einstein.
Point, yeah.
I don't really know Einstein.
Sorry, Princess Diana, if you're watching.
Yeah, what am I going to say to Einstein? What are we going to talk about? It's kind of boring, his stuff. Important stuff, but kind of boring.
Okay, we're going through a lot of people here. So you got to give me one person that you would have a meal with, one that's currently not alive and can't be a religious figure, and then one that is alive. Or it could be a group of people in the sense of like if you want to say your family, I mean, that's one, but I feel like that's kind of a cop-out. So like for me, ready, I'll give you mine. If for people living, I mean, it would definitely be the Discord crew. Like if we're all on our last meals, we're all eating that one together. So okay. And then I think I'm getting my chicken fingers and French fries for my last one.
From where, Chris? Can you give a plug or no?
I don't know. I think I might have to. You ready? This is gonna sound crazy. I'm gonna get some shit for this one, but the Red Lobster. I think Red Lobster still has the best chicken fingers and French fries Red Lobster, please, if you're watching this, sponsor me. I will promote you every time. Just don't give me any of your fish. Just biscuits and the freaking chicken fingers.
Yeah, biscuits and the chicken fingers. I mean, like I said, I'm sure the people that, but there's a ton that I just.
Yeah, non-living, I think I'd go with.
Well, I mean, what was his name? Nostradamus.
Nostradamus.
He would be great to have a conversation with now because he's predicted so many things that have come to pass.
I think I might go with Da Vinci.
Oh yeah, Da Vinci.
I think I'd go with the Da Vinci.
Yes.
Like Michelangelo would probably be cool, or like a Socrates. But I think Michelangelo, like, if he only talks about painting, I'm gonna get bored. Like, I don't know. He wasn't. They call him a philosopher too, but it's like, not really. He was more of a painter.
Yeah, I think Da Vinci would be more interesting because he was involved in a lot of different things.
Yeah. He was
Science,
a guy.
Religion.
Yeah.
You know, he was one of the Emirates.
Well, they think that he had some weird knowledge where he figured out a lot of secrets of the world, and he put them in like these weird riddles. Because now they're finding stuff that he drew in his area that, like, over in South Africa, that same image is there, but it came before him. Like they've carbon dated it back to before he was even alive. So it's like this guy was onto something that was way, way different than. He's one of those guys like, yeah, like when they talk about like the burning of Alexandria and all the stuff that's gone, like I think he had that knowledge still. Maybe I'm way off on timelines there. Like maybe that was before or whatever, but I think he's that key. I think he's one of the people that is the key to unlocking that knowledge. And he never shared it with anyone.
We talk about, we were watching Dylan and Rogan, and they were talking about the pyramids and how we lost knowledge. There must have been like a higher thinking going on. Something must have happened, and all the knowledge was lost because it just doesn't make sense how the Egyptians had such an advanced ability to do that, and then we went to nothing. So last night I was watching Jonathan and Jesus. It's a documentary about this actor Jonathan Rumi who's portraying Jesus on a crowd-funded production that has exploded called The Chosen, okay? And they did a documentary of him traveling around. He goes to Rome to go see certain sites, some are related to Jesus. It's all about how people respond to him because he is the current face of Jesus. That's how popular he is in the series. And he's talking to a historian, and they're looking at the Colosseum, and he says to him, the historian tells him how, if you think about it, every stadium in the world is designed based on this Colosseum.
Right.
And the knowledge and the ability that went into creating this makes no sense that people were able to do that. And naturally, there was all this knowledge that was lost when Rome fell, and we entered the Dark Ages. And it took many, many years for us to get out of the Dark Ages into the Renaissance when we started thinking again. And that was only because we were able to go back and find some of the classical information from the Romans and the Greeks. But a lot of it was lost. And he was wondering is this going to happen again? And he mentioned the pyramids, this historian. He says, well, we've gone through this before. And there's always like this gap in history where they accomplished this incredible thing for a certain time period. And then we have nothing. And then we come back to a new time period and it kind of starts all over again. And he's wondering if it's going to happen again. No. So I thought that was very interesting that he was drawing the same conclusions like what Rogan was saying too. And will it happen again? Are we going to have some dark age where we lose all AI, where we lose all this information that has to be recreated?
Right.
So
yeah, that's a good it's like it's the modern day burning of Alexandria when we put everything in robots and the robots are like, yeah, we don't want to tell you. We have all this knowledge that you guys gave us 1,000 years ago, but we don't want to tell it to you.
Problem with Alexandria is a lot of information was lost.
Yeah.
That might have explained the whole pyramids and the knowledge, but because it was all destroyed, we'll never know. Yeah. And we had to rethink not the wheel, but that's the term. We had to learn things all over again and develop things all over again and come up with a better, society with knowledge. But having said that, I mean, I'm still drawing a blank. There's a lot of people now that are very interested in each other. Victor David Hanson, he's a political guy. He's a thinker.
See, I don't know if there's anyone in modern day history that I care that much about that I would I feel like the most important people that are going to have an impact on me are the ones from the 1600s, 1300s, or before 0 BC.
People that are not alive today.
Yeah. I would say Mozart, but he was deaf. Or no, Beethoven was, right? Beethoven was deaf.
Yeah.
That'd be a very awkward dinner.
Well, those are perfect examples of, it would be interesting to listen to them and get their take on music and how they develop things, but it doesn't really help you it's it's like a lecture. That's not a conversation.
It'd be a nice last meal if Beethoven was playing for you, though.
Yeah.
Live, yeah.
Well, I mean, he had a really hard life, so I'm sure consumed by his music, people like that. Mozart was a wackadoodle. I mean, he was, by today's standards, he was a
schizophrenic,
crazy, genius who the stuff just poured out of him. But that's like what you're saying with Da Vinci. He was one of those people at that time that may have had some knowledge from his lifetime that was destroyed, and we don't know where he got it from, but it might have been built on other information.
Not to go off topic, but think about like basically every 200 years, we had someone like a Beethoven or a Mozart that just like, they were just at such a higher playing field that nowadays we don't really have that. We have multiple people on high playing fields, but I don't know if you have someone like that. Isn't it kind of interesting how all of a sudden we had these like maybe it's just a show of the times or something. I guess the closest thing to like a Mozart or a Beethoven or a Da Vinci, Michelangelo, I guess it would be Musk. Like I don't know who else I would put in there. Like we have all these people, but now everyone's in teams. You don't really have one specific person that's just at a crazy playing. Maybe Kanye West when you talk about like music and like a crazy musician who sees things at a different level. But nowadays, I wonder if what we consider, like, think about their level of fame back then and how many generations it lasted. Like we still talk about these guys today. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to have that as much anymore. I think the only person that you will have that is probably Elon. Right? Maybe Trump just because of influentialness.
Yeah. Well, I think Trump is an unusual person in his field, put it that way, or in one of his fields.
But do you think we'd still be talking about him 500 years from now?
No, I think they'll do their best to get him out of history altogether.
I think you would say that about anyone in our era. I think
yes, present day.
Like I think Elon, because of everything that he's done in the sense of Starlink, SpaceX, I think he will probably be the closest to that category of people who are still using Starlink 300 years from now. I think he'll be in that running, which is kind of wild to think about. You know what I mean?
Genius type people that you're hinting at are people working at a higher level. I don't think they're, I think in its day, Michelangelo was just a painter.
I know, right? It's
not like people
were he wasn't just
about him, talking about him or knew about him unless you were in painting.
I'm pretty sure I don't think that's true. I think back then, Mom, painters like that, I mean, if like everyone knew Michelangelo, right? I think even before that, because otherwise, why would the Pope ask him to do the Sistine Chapel?
Because he was a really talented painter. I'm not saying he wasn't, but he was one of many who worked on art at that time. There were there's 800 churches in Rome. Do you know that?
Yeah, but I would have thought.
But my point is, it's their field. I don't know that he stood out like he does 500 years later. Like sometimes time is your greatest benefit because it makes you stand out more because of the fact that you supersede time.
I don't know. I'd love to go back and ask, but I'm pretty sure the Pope didn't just pick a random painter. Because I think Michelangelo did statues and stuff as well. Yeah.
They made a name for themselves, yes. But he wasn't the only great artist at that time.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So at the time, he was one of many great artists. The test of time was, over time, those same handful of artists, now they stand out as these phenomenal creators. I mean, incredible.
Yeah. Actually, wasn't Pablo Picasso within the last 100 years? Picasso's not that old, right?
He's Picasso's more current one.
Yeah. But he'll probably be talked about for generations. He's definitely
he was a modern art. He You know what it is? They're immortalized by their work also. They'll be remembered as long as the paintings are there. Just like certain writers are immortalized because of their writings. And they not be special people, but they're talented
So I
writers.
wonder if that, what's his name? Cliff, that guy that I show you all the time, the one that preaches, you know, the guy, he goes to colleges or he's a college professor. People ask him about God. You know the guy I'm talking about with the curly hair. Yeah. I wonder if like 200 years from now, we'll consider him kind of like how we talk about Socrates. But the problem is religion's not as concise as it was 2,000 years ago or longer.
Right. Well,
like, do we have any philosophers that are even going to be talked about anytime soon? Right? Like, philosophy, as great as it is kind of a dead art in the sense of it's not really I hate to say it, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I don't really see it as like a career. No one's really flocking to philosophers anymore.
No, and it's more of, now you have more like psychologists, like the Jordan Petersons of the world.
That's a good one.
Or
That's a good one.
Political people out there who, espouse what they've studied, what they've learned, and give back based on certain conditions.
Yeah.
Socrates is a standout because he is the harbinger of all, not the harbinger, I would say the person that created critical thinking. Or person that identified critical thinking.
He's also the one that really made people think about, like, hey, what else is out there? Right? Like, hey, what is above that sky thing that we see?
And he did that just by, if you think about it, he very well, I haven't studied all his works, but he was not about making statements. He was about asking questions.
Yeah.
Which is incredible because from that, you got all law, you get all science, you get all, math, you get all politics. It's just the idea of questioning, do I exist? Why do I exist? I think. Why do I think? Always at the Socratic method. You always question everything. From the moment we're born, we question things. That's how our brain develops and we learn. Yeah. So I know he's a human being and whatnot, but he's more of an idea.
Yeah.
It's like a concept.
Right.
That's an incredible thing.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't think we'll have, I want to say I don't think we'll ever have it again, but it's just funny how within the span of, like, every 100 years, there was someone that did something like a Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. Like, there was someone that literally cemented themselves in the history of the world, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think we've had any of those since maybe Picasso, but even then, I don't know if he's going to be, I would consider him someone who really changed history. He changed art, and he's very well known, but I don't know if we've had someone that changed history. The only person that I can think of that maybe could have changed history was Nikola Tesla, but government basically shut that down real fast.
On the other side of that, I was going to say, so Socrates, as incredible as he is now, when we look at what he accomplished, he was a political prisoner. Nobody wanted him around. There was a whole group of people that wanted him to shut up. He was causing trouble. Why do you have people thinking? Only certain people are supposed to think. So again, the test of time is years, many, many years, and students later, Aristotle and whatnot, that came from Socrates. Because of that, that's why they became so famous.
Yeah.
Because you look back on them. So maybe in 100 years, there will be somebody that we're not even aware of. And that's what I was going to say, to your point about Elon Musk. I think it's going to be more somebody in the sciences.
Yeah.
That will bring that about. I think because, this is just my opinion, because there's such a dearth of religion right now, and that religion's on the decline because of, as we talked about, the replacement of the machine. Mm-hmm. People don't need gods of any kind, of any religion in their lives. Generationally, it's going away. I think as you start to see that and you see society continue to decline, and more people, that dystopian type of environment where AI comes in to replace God and people find that they're not happy, they're not this. I think then you're going to see that next person rise who goes back to, like we were just saying, who brings people back to the organic, who takes them out of the science world. Similar to what you see in all these movies. There's always that hero that comes along who saves people from, falling into the trap of whatever problems that, the machines are creating. But I think you will see a spiritual force or some individual will come forth and start to unite people and take them out of that depth. That seems to be our cycle. That seems to be what happens with humanity. Like I said just before about how all this knowledge gets lost. You go into the dark ages, and somehow we always seem to have those Michelangelos, those Mozarts, those individuals that come out and bring you out of the dark with the knowledge and their abilities. Maybe the Elon Musks, I don't know, but I think, in my opinion, he means well, but I think we're going in the wrong direction. Unfortunately, I think we have to as human beings, but maybe that's part of the cycle of we're going to advance so far that we're going to decline.
Yeah, no, I agree. You still haven't answered the question though. What would be? How about this? How about what's your last meal? Because clearly you have too many. We might as well just bring all the biggest people in history for you. That's basically your answer. So what would the final meal?
Up with a current person at some point. Like I said, there's tons of people that I would love to talk to who are dead, who I think are fascinating.
Last meal. I feel
Mir Magdalene. I mean, she is so underrated. I would really love to hear her story, the truth. Last meal. My favorite meal as a kid, and that's all I can tell you.
You're gonna say grits and grits
No. Every night for our birthday, my Aunt Helen would cook us whatever we wanted on our birthday. And for some kooky reason, I'm an August baby. I always wanted turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberries. It was like some sort of Thanksgiving recreation that I wanted in the summer. I don't know why. I just always, like a comfort food. I always enjoyed it.
Really?
I don't have any favorite food or whatnot. There's nothing like, I would love to have.
That's some bullshit.
Well, you asked.
Yeah. I think everyone was like, she's gonna want 5 biscuits from Red Lobster or like a
Red Lobster.
Yeah.
I don't even have a favorite restaurant anymore.
I don't know. Yeah.
I like all kinds of food. That's why there's no real, if I can only have one thing on death row, what's it gonna be?
Yeah. See, I like Chinese food, but I don't know if I want Chinese food to be I want to go out and American,
You want the good American meal. Red Lobster chicken fingers.
Yeah, Red Lobster chicken fingers, or maybe something from the rail. I don't know. Maybe chicken fingers. Maybe I want to go down with just with sauce all over my face. Just this is how I want you to remember me.
Please no.
Yeah, that's how I'll go. As they're putting me in the electric chair.
God.
Yeah. All right, Mom, we just did an hour and a half.
Thinking now. Well, I'm gonna come up with something. Watch, like 2 a.m. I'm gonna text you a name. I thought of it.
Yeah. I'll let chat know. I'll let everyone in Discord know.
Next podcast, if I have a name, I'll bring it. But you caught me off guard with that one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, that was a good question. I think that was Zia that asked that, but I'm not sure. Either way, Mom, we just did an hour and almost a half, which is wild. These could go by. Yeah, they go by pretty fast. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else. I slowed down a little bit on videos. I'm starting to get back into them, but the only thing I have to promote, I put out the first episode, and well, actually, it was a Games Pass Roulette. I played the original Walking Dead game, which was actually quite fun. So go check that out. Social media down below, promo codes down below, Discord down below, other stream links down below. Mother, thank you. Maybe next week we'll do it again. I don't know who else wants to do it.
New microphone.
No problem. I got Mama Blue Yeti. She loves it.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, Mom. We will see you. Everyone else, we'll see you in the next one. So.
Bye.